Hey church, I want to hang out with you and spend a little time with you this morning. This is maybe a little less of a devotional that you're used to and more of a blog with a little more of my opinion in it. Many of you know I don't do social media, and that's not a judgment, it's just a reality. But I've been spending an inordinate amount of time actually discussing what y'all are posting on social media. And I find myself asking the question over and over again, well, who posted that? And sometimes the answer comes back to me, does it really matter? And I'm going to say, yes, it does matter. And let me tell you why it matters to me. I began to think about my desire, my need to know. Why is it important to me? Who posts particular videos or what attitude their reaction expresses? The very first thing about it is, why wouldn't somebody be willing to name names with regard to who posted something? It's already out there in the public domain. And yet, I think that people worry about it reflecting poorly, or me thinking poorly about something that somebody posted, which maybe should be a bit of a warning sign that maybe what we're posting is not flattering. And so we might want to think about that. So why do I want to know? Well, there's lots of reasons. First of all, I think that what people post and write down is often a more true version of what they're thinking. Most of the time when people talk to me, maybe it's because I'm a pastor, I get a sanitized version of things, and maybe with not all the details, but some of those things come through in your posts. Integrity for me is being just really clear. This is where I am right now. You don't have to apologize for it, but own it. Don't change it depending on who you're with. And so if you find yourself changing your message according to your crowd, maybe you need to change your message so it's consistent, or maybe you need to change your crowd. I don't know, just a thought for you. The second reason I want to know comes from the words of Jesus in the book of Matthew chapter 12. And I like the King James Version. It says, from the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks. And so when I read or hear of the things that some of you post, it helps me get a glimpse into where your heart is at. And so if we're writing, whether it reflects positively or negatively, I think that there's something that I learn by hearing what people post. The third thing is it tells me where people are allowing their minds to dwell. In 1 Corinthians 15:33, Paul says that bad company corrupts good morals. And in Galatians, he talks about sowing and reaping. And so I would say that depending what people are posting or forwarding, I get a sense of essentially who are you spending your time with? Who are you allowing to influence your thinking? Because that begins to change us. Again, from Paul in Romans 12, he says, don't be conformed by this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. And so the things we read, those things begin to seep into our thinking and into our emotions and into our beliefs and values. And by what some people post, I think that maybe we should make some different choices about who we're listening to and the kind of material we're allowing to transform and change us. It's a sobering thought, isn't it? You know, not long ago there was a real debate over whether an employer should go to a prospective employee's Facebook or social media site to see what kind of person they are. And there was people who cried foul that that's an invasion of my privacy. Never mind that it's on a public forum. But if that's wrong for an employer who's going to invest in you to know who you really are, if that's an invasion of privacy, then you not wanting them to know, for me, is the equivalent of fraud. Because who we are is who we are. And it shouldn't be about how people find out. It should be about whether people really know the truth of who we are and what kind of folks we are. And I think that that's a fair thing for an employer or a boyfriend or girlfriend or anybody to ask of us. Listen, we're living in a very unique time. It's a challenging time. And it's kind of a perfect storm. Let me just read off a few of the things I noted as the influences that have converged in this moment of time. The fear, public fear for health and safety, especially for our seniors. The fear of financial loss and even ruin. The ferocious debates over individual rights versus corporate responsibility. Alberta's economy was already reeling before all of this started. And politically, governments are asserting themselves and establishing stronger authority, a presence in our lives, which has given rise to a flourishing set of conspiracy theories, and off we go. Add to that a biblical perspective of Revelation, which is a prophetic word that talks about last days and how things will be challenging in those times. And so we're kind of anticipating the worst. Now, generations have always thought that they were in the last generation, and ours is no different. And it's good to want to know where we're at on the biblical timeline. But I think that it can get into our minds, and we can get carried away. Keep in mind that every generation maybe thought that they were in the last days, and although we think we are. Finally, there's tremendous emotional pressure, and I would say mental pressure on folks who are really struggling, having been isolated in their homes, not being able to get out and about, and maybe not having the family and friends around them who tend to balance them emotionally and even with regard to discussing the issues that we're facing. And I want to say that in the coming together of all of that stuff, it's a pressure cooker that is actually pushing things to the surface of our hearts and our minds in our lives. And so as this is happening, going back to this idea of what people are posting on social media, as people read what we write, they're also gaining an insight into who we are and what's going on the inside of us, our souls, our values, where we are in our spirit. And so what's being exposed in you? And what are you writing and posting and sharing? Is it of fear or is it faith? When we can't gather for big worship, do you still gather for small worship and find places to show your gratitude and love for Jesus? When we're asked to be citizens of a community, do you look for opportunities to serve and help? Or do you grumble and resist the insistence that you change what you normally would do? Do you see through the eyes of the nervous, of those who don't have Christ, of the fearful, of those who are under pressure? Do you see those people around you? And does your interaction with them and what you're writing and posting actually help them to know that there's a God of peace and a God who will help us? I learned a Sunday school song when I was a little kid, so it's like 100 years old, but it had a repeating refrain. Be careful, little eyes, what you see. There's a Father up above who's looking down in love. Be careful, little eyes, what you see. And it talked about be careful, ears, what you hear, and hands, what you do, and feet, where you go. Be careful, heart, who you trust is an important one. And be careful, little mind, what you think is a powerful biblical reminder. Maybe we should add another verse for 2020. Be careful, little fingers, what you post. Listen, I want to end with just this thought. As people read your words, they're reading you. And they read me when they hear my blogs or hear a message. My question is the fragrance and the presence of Jesus a part of what people are hearing and feeling from you? In an online church and world where we can't have face-to-face, we have to be even more cautious and careful. Think of what the scriptural commands are. Ephesians 4, 28 and 29, which is actually the verse over our church Facebook page. Let no unwholesome word proceed from your mouth, but only such as is good for edification, according to the need of the moment, so that it will give grace to those who hear. And Colossians 4:6 is like it. Let your speech always be with grace, like seasoned with salt, so that you will know how to respond to each person. Our calling is to reflect Jesus to the world. If someone logs into our online presence as a church, or for you, your own social media account, would they know that you're a follower of Christ? Would that be exemplary for them? Would they think, this person could help me find peace, or help me know how they're coping so well in such challenging times? And so that ends my thought for the day. Let's be super careful and super conscious that we represent Jesus to the world around us and to the people we know and love. God bless you.